समुद्रस्य हिमाद्रश्चैव दक्षिणं वर्षं तद्भारतं नाम भारतीयत्र सन्तति।
नमस्ते, मैं पहुंचा हूं कामाख्या मंदिर नीलाचल पर्वत में। नीलाचल पर्वत means the blue mountain. Why the blue mountain? Because महादेव नीलोलोहित यहीं पे अंतर्निहित है। There are many stories connected with Kamakhya. Most of these stories are from Kalika Puran or Yogini Tantra. There are two main stories. One of them is connected with Kama and the burning down of Kama. The other story is connected with Narakashur. Both of these stories are about Kamakhya. You can see this wonderful example of Ahom architecture behind me. The temple has a rather unique structure. It is in the form of a 16-sided polygon. Kamakhya temple is of course thousands of years old. It predates Ahoms and the Ahom architecture. It is one of the Shaktipeethas. It is a center for Tantra. It is a center for worship of Devi, a center for worship of Shakti. It is particularly a place where people come at one particular time of the year during Ambubachi.
नदी, झील, पहाड़, चाय के बागान और हसीन नजारों से सजा है असम का आंचल। मनोहर भव्यता और प्राकृतिक परिदृश्यों के साथ साथ असम दुर्लभ वन्य जीवों, अपनी कला और शिल्प के लिए जाना जाता है, जो इसकी समृद्ध संस्कृति को दर्शाते हैं। यहाँ से गुजरती ब्रह्मपुत्र नदी पूर्वोत्तर के मुख्य द्वार कहे जाने वाले असम की खूबसूरती में चार चांद लगा देती है।
मैं हूँ पूर्वोत्तर के प्रवेश द्वार गुवाहाटी में और मेरे पीछे है असम की जीवनदायिनी नदी ब्रह्मपुत्र। ब्रह्मपुत्र ही वो पावन नदी है जिसके किनारे असमिया संस्कृति, परंपरा और लोक साहित्य समृद्ध हुआ।
आनंद और उल्लास की अभिव्यक्ति का उत्सव बिहू असमिया संस्कृति का अभिन्न अंग है, जो अहोम राजाओं के समय से मनाया जा रहा है।
माला जय जय जम्बे भूताक्षी।
धार्मिक और सांस्कृतिक दृष्टि से असम की अहमियत कामाख्या शक्तिपीठ से और बढ़ जाती है। देश भर में अनेक सिद्ध स्थान हैं जहां माता सूक्ष्म स्वरूप में निवास करती हैं। महाशक्ति पीठों में कामाख्या प्रमुख हैं।
महामाया महेशानी कामेश्वरी नमस्तुते।
माता सती के प्रति भगवान शिव का मोह भंग करने के लिए भगवान विष्णु की ओर से सुदर्शन चक्र चलाने से माता सती के मृत शरीर के भाग जहां जहां गिरे वहां वहां शक्तिपीठ बन गए और वो शक्तिपीठ एक देवी के रूप में परिवर्तित हो गया। नीलांचल या नील शैल पर्वतमालाओं पर माता सती का योनि भाग गिरा था। उसी से कामाख्या शक्तिपीठ की उत्पत्ति हुई।
असम को मातृ साधना की तीर्थ भूमि भी कहा जाता है। असम के नीलांचल पर्वत पर यह है भारत के प्रमुख शक्तिपीठों में से एक माँ कामाख्या का शक्तिपीठ, जिसे मूल शक्तिपीठ भी कहा जाता है। इस शक्तिपीठ का महत्व यह है कि यहाँ पर योग साधना के लिए, तंत्र साधना के लिए भारत के दूर दराज इलाकों के अलावा बांग्लादेश, तिब्बत और अफ्रीका के कई देशों से साधक साधना के सर्वोच्च शिखर को हासिल करने यहाँ आते हैं।
प्राच्यां रक्षतु मे तारा।
कामाख्या तंत्र सिद्धि का सर्वोच्च स्थल है। भारत में जिस प्रकार कुंभ महापर्व का महत्व है, ठीक उसी तरह कामाख्या शक्तिपीठ में आदि शक्ति के अम्बुवाची पर्व का महत्व है। इस पर्व में विभिन्न प्रकार की दिव्य अलौकिक शक्तियों का अर्जन तंत्र मंत्र में पारंगत साधक अपनी अपनी मंत्र शक्तियों को पुरस्चरण अनुष्ठान कर स्थिर रखते हैं।
काउन पीठ में से ये एक पीठ माँ कामाख्या तंत्र पीठ भी है। इसमें जो तंत्र साधना लोग आते हैं, दूर दूर से भक्त लोग आता है, सन्यास लोग आते हैं, यहाँ पर तंत्र साधना भी करते हैं। और इस समय हम लोग का एक मेला लगते हैं अम्बुबासी। उस समय 3 दिन के लिए मंदिर बंद रहते हैं। उस समय माताजी का रजस्वला होते हैं। उस समय जो रजस्वला होते हैं उस समय एक कपड़ा निकलता है। वही कपड़ा हम लोग आशीर्वाद उत्सव से सब भक्त के लिए देते रहे। ये देवियों का इतना ही शक्ति है कि जिस भक्त ने जिस कामना के लिए माँ का दरबार में आते हैं, हर भक्त का ये माँ का कामना पूरा हो जाता है।
माँ कामाख्या जो है, हम लोग हर काम के लिए, हर शुभ काम के लिए हम उनके चरण छू के हम लोग प्रणाम करते हैं। उनके आशीर्वाद से कोई भी एक शुभ काम स्टार्ट होता है। तो यही सोच के हम लोग अपने जीवन का जो भी अच्छा दिन है वो स्टार्ट करने के लिए हम लोगों ने यही स्थान चुना है।
सब लोग शादी के लिए भी यहाँ पे शुभ माना जाता है, तो हम लोग भी यहीं पे मतलब डिसाइड किया कि शादी यहीं पे ही हो, माँ की आशीर्वाद हो।
उग्रतारा महादेवी जंघोरु परिरक्षतु।
माँ कामाख्या या कामेश्वरी मनोकामना पूर्ण करने वाली देवी हैं। इसलिए कामाख्या शक्तिपीठ में इसी तरह साल भर भक्त भारी तादाद में आते रहते हैं। पुराणों में आदि शक्ति देवी को सर्वशक्तिमयी कहा गया है और ये शक्ति ही विश्व का सृजन, संचालन और संहार करती है। एक ही शक्ति भिन्न भिन्न रूपों में विभिन्न वस्तुओं, व्यक्तियों, स्थानों और कालों को प्रकाशित करती है। मार्कंडेय पुराण के अंश श्री दुर्गा सप्तशती में कुछ ऐसे स्तोत्र और मंत्र हैं जिनके विधिवत पारायण से सारी मनोकामनाएं पूरी होती हैं। दुर्गा सप्तशती पाठ के पहले किए जाने वाले स्तोत्र श्री दैवथर्व शीर्षम में इसका जिक्र है कि जब सभी देवताओं ने देवी के पास जाकर पूछा कि हे महादेवी, आप कौन हैं, तो उन्होंने कहा,
अहम ब्रह्म स्वरूपिणी मत्तः प्रकृति पुरुषात्मकम जगत शून्यम च अशून्यम च अहम आनंदो अनानंदो अहम विज्ञान अविज्ञाने अहम ब्रह्मा अब्रह्मणि वेदितव्ये अहम पंचभूतानि अपंचभूतानि अहम अखिलम जगत।
योग और माया ये दोनों देवी की शक्ति हैं, इसलिए उन्हें योग माया भी कहते हैं। योग शांति, जुड़ाव, सौहार्द है तो माया भ्रम, भटकाव, बंधन है। उस भ्रम से मुक्ति का उपाय भी देवी कृपा ही है। सप्तशती में कहा गया है,
सम्मोहितम देवी समस्तमैतत् त्वं वै प्रसन्ना भुवि मुक्ति हेतु।
आध्यात्मिकता प्रधान भारतीय संस्कृति में शक्ति का स्वरूप देवी हैं। दुर्गा, काली, सीता, राधा, लक्ष्मी, मंगला और पार्वती सब उन्हीं के रूप हैं।
I am standing at a wonderful heritage site on the banks of the Brahmaputra, which you can see behind me. If you look towards my back on the left, you will be able to see Umananda in the distance. We are here to have a conversation with two very, very dear friends. We will learn about Kamakhya's history, its legacy. We will learn about the history of the region also. These two very, very wonderful friends, it is difficult to introduce them. First of all, Wazir Hussain, who is a very famous TV personality in this part of the region. He is an anchor. Right next to him, another dear friend, Partho Mohanta, who happens to be a very distinguished, decorated police service officer, senior police service officer In his spare time, he is a poet, but more importantly for our present purposes, he is the author of a book not only on Kaziranga, he is the author of 2 books, one on Shiva and the other one on Kamakhya. Welcome. Let me start with you, Vasveer. When we go to the Kamakhya temple today, what we see is a very wonderful example of Ahom architecture in the present temple. But the story of Kamakhya is older. The story of the temple is also older. It probably goes back 2000 years. Give us a sense of the timeline of the Kamakhya temple.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words that you said about me. Now, coming straight to your question, Dr. Debroy, the worship in Kamakhya, there are several accounts which say that it predates the establishment of Kamarupa in the 4th century. That is about the worship. Now, if you talk about the present temple structure, which is extremely unique, there are a lot of accounts which say that it has been constructed, reconstructed in the 8th to 9th century, 11th to 12th century, and some say that this process continued even till the 17th century. The present structure which you see, it dates back, according to reliable accounts, to the 16th century, and it has got a hybrid kind of a design, indigenous hybrid design, that you can see. It's a hemispherical dome on a cruciform base, and a lot of people say that it has acquired its own indigenous name. It's called the Nilasal type of architecture, because Nilasal is the hill in the western part of Guwahati where this, very, very sacred Shaktipeeth, that is the Kamakhya temple, is located. So it's called the Nilasal type. But yes, once again to say that the worship predates perhaps the establishment of Kamarupa, the kingdom, the state, the place in the 4th century. But if you talk about the structure, there has been several construction and reconstruction, and the present structure perhaps dates back to the 16th century.
So we are probably talking about at least 2000 years.
Absolutely.
The worship, not
Absolutely.
the temple.
Absolutely.
Kamakhya, Partho, why Kamakhya? We know the stories that are there in Kalika Puran, Yogini Tantra. Tell us briefly about why is Kamakhya important.
So the story actually dates back to the creation itself. Vishnu employed his Sudarshan Chakra and to dismember Soti's body, which was dismembered into 51 pieces that fell at 51 different places, and the Yoni Mudra fell in the Nilachal Parvat. Nilachal Parvat at that time was 100 yojan tall. 1 yojan is generally the distance that a bullock cart can travel in a course of one day.
Yoking of the...
Yes, and it could not bear the weight of the Yoni Mudra, so it started sinking. The Holy Trinity tried to hold the Nilachal Parvat. They held the 3 peaks, the Brahma peak, Vishnu peak and the Shiv peak. Brahma peak is where the Bhuvaneshwari Mandir is located. Vishnu peak is where the Pandu Nath is located, and Shiv peak is where the Kamakhya.
So it's still in the shape of a triangle.
It is still in the shape of a triangle, and they also could not hold it. Finally, Devi Mahamaya had to come and help them, and after that it stopped.
So that is how it became a Peetha.
It is the strongest, it is the most powerful Shaktipeeth because the Shakti fell here.
But probably because of the story of Kama being burnt down in Bhashmachal, which is Umananda, it subsequently acquired the name of Kamakhya.
Yes, because eventually when Shiva and Sati, they had a blissful married life for 10,000 years, and then in Treta Yuga, that was in Satya Yuga, in Treta Yuga when Shiva and Parvati got married, after the marriage, Roti, Kamdev's wife, went and prayed before Shiva to give him the body back. He gave the body back, but he was not as handsome, or he was the epitome of machismo and
It is also
charm.
a place that is associated with Tantra, because Vasishtha.
Yes, and that is when then Shiva said, Shiva told Kamdev, you go and find the Yoni Mudra and you pray to Devi there. If Devi, you can satisfy Devi with your prayers, you will get your form back. That is when he started meditating upon Ma Kamakhya, and he found the Yoni Mudra. Shiva returned him his original beauty, and with the help of Vishwakarma, he built a mandir here.
So that is the story of Kamakhya for you. Most of the time when people talk about Sanatan Sanskriti in this part of the region, they invariably mention Kamakhya. Shivsagar is of course of much recent origin, but there is Tezpur. Unless I am wrong, that is what used to be Shonitpur once upon a time. So tell us a little bit about Shonitpur and Banasur also.
Shonitpur was the city of Banasur. Banasur was great grandson of Prahlad, the great Vishnu Bhakt. And Banasur was a Shiv devotee. So he had established Mahavairav Mandir in Tezpur. He used to pray to Shiv, and he had a boon from Bhagavan Shiv that Bhagavan Shiv would protect him and his city of Shonitpur. And his daughter Usha fell in love with Aniruddha.
The Usha, Aniruddha and Krishna.
Yeah, that story.
So along with Kamakhya, Tezpur, Shonitpur, that Bhairav Mandir is probably one of the oldest temples in the region.
Oldest temple.
But Vazir, often one identifies this region with worship of Devi, worship of Shakti, even worship of Shiva. But there was a very, very strong bhakti tradition also here. Particularly I have in mind Shankardev. So please tell us a little bit about Shankardev.
Absolutely. You are bang on, when you said that there was a very strong bhakti influence or bhakti movement in Assam. Just like Guru Nanak ji, whether Ramananda, Kabir, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the elsewhere in India. In the 15th, 16th century, Assam saw the rise and prominence of our very, revered philosopher saint Srimanta Sankardeva. He was born in 1449 in Nagaon, that is in central Assam. And, he was a neo-Vaishnavite saint. And he was a multifaceted personality. He was a playwright, he was a musician, he was an author. He was into everything. He was a socio-cultural personality which influenced the very, I would say, he was a lifeblood of the people in this part of the world, in this region, particularly Assam. And he started the Hotra tradition. He started the Hotras, which are Vaishnavite monasteries, and his disciples were called Bhakats. And in these satras, we have hundreds of satras, and we have the center of the satras in Majuli today. We have got a lot of satras, and of course his birthplace. Now you see, these are practitioners of art, culture and music. Even today, these are live institutions.
They still exist.
They still exist. Shankardeva died in the 16th century, but even today, 500 years down the line, we see his followers sticking to his tradition. And most important, I'd like to tell you, is that he preached Ek Sarana Dharma, that is the Ek Ishwar.
Jyotirlingas, Dakinyang Bhima Shankaram. Everyone thinks that it is the one near Pune. But there is a Bhima Shankar Lingam here also. Tell us about that.
There is a Bhima Shankar Lingam near Pune, but we believe that the Bhima Shankar Lingam is the one that we have here near Guwahati. Because of the mansion of King of Kamrup. The story is like this. Again, it was in the Satya Yuga. It was before the Lanka Youth. And before the Lanka Youth, Kumbhakarna had a son. He had sired a son.
Many people don't know, so let me stress that again, that Kumbhakarna and Karkati had a son named Bhimasur.
Bhimasur. And Kumbhakarna had promised Karkati that he would marry her after, he would come back and marry her and take her to Lanka. But before that could happen, he was killed by Ram in the battle. And after Kumbhakarna was killed, Karkati and Bhimasur, they used to live in Sajja Parbat, all alone. And when Bhimasur grew up, one day he asked his mother, why we live away from habitation, why we live all alone. Then Karkati narrated her life story to Bhimasur. Her parents were Karkat and Pushkashi, and she was married off to a demon called Virat, who was killed by Ram. So after that Virat was killed,
so
she came back to
became very angry.
She came back to parents, and then her parents again was killed by a sage called Sutikshna. So she was all alone, and that is when they met and they stayed together, and Bhimasur was born. So she was very angry and he wanted to avenge his father's death, and he started meditating upon Brahma. He actually meditated for 1,000 years, but Brahma did not appear. And then he increased the intensity of his penance, and he stood on one leg and with his arms outstretched.
So Brahma gave him a boon.
Yes.
As always, Brahma does.
As always, and he got the boon to be Mahabali. He returned to his mother, and after the Lanka Yudh, actually, there were only a few demons were left in the netherworld or on earth. So they all came, they got the news, and they declared him as the king. The first thing he did after becoming the king, demon king, that he threw the king of Kamrup and his wife to
This is
prison.
Priya Dharma or something like that. Something like that.
Then he embarked on his. He conquered the world, all the three worlds, and he returned. And by the time he returned, the prison warden found out that the king of Kamrup was actually praying to Lord Shiva, and he had Parthiva Lingam. And so Bhimashur was very angry. He went to the prison and he wanted to kill the king, and he asked him
if Shiva killed Bhimashur.
And
that
then
Parthiva Lingam
became the
Jyotirlinga.
Jyotirlinga. So that is why, since the name King of Kamrup is mentioned, it has to be here.
In any case, Dakini is not a geographical place one can easily identify. It can be anywhere. Vasveer, Partho, to dear friends, thank you very much. Thank you for enlightening the viewers.
Thank you.
I hope all of you will now come to Kamrup Kamakhya. अब यहाँ से हम जाएंगे भीमाशंकर, देखेंगे भीमाशंकर ज्योतिर्लिंगम. This is the place where prayed to by the king of Kamarupa, Shivji destroyed Bhimasur, the son of Kumbhakarna and Karkati. He obtained a vara, a boon from Brahma, created a lot of oppression. At that time he imprisoned the king of Kamarupa, Priyadharma. Priyadharma prayed to Shiva in his form as Parthiva Lingam. After this, Shivji destroyed Bhimasur and prayed to by the king of Kamrupa. Instead of that Parthiva Lingam, he assumed the form of a Jyotirlingam. भीमाशंकर से अब हम चलेंगे उमानंद. उमानंद एक मशहूर शिवलिंग है. ये एक द्वीप के ऊपर है जिस द्वीप का नाम है उमानंद या भस्माचल.
मंदाकिनी सलिल चंदन चर्चिता नंदीश्वर प्रमथनाथ महेश्वराय मंदार पुष्प बहु पुष्प सुपूजिताय तस्मै मकाराय शिवाय गौरी वदनाब्ज वृंद सूर्याय दक्षाध्वर नाशकाय.
भीमशंकर से हम अब पहुँचे हैं उमानंदन या उमानंद. In the colonial period, this used to be known as Peacock Island because it was believed that the island resembled the spread of a peacock's feathers. मगर सही नाम है उमानंदन या उमानंद. All of us know the story of Kama, the god of love, being burned down by Mahadev. Before that, Shivji had built this particular pleasure ground for Uma, which is the reason it is known as Umanandan or Umananda, a place that brings delight to Uma. We know about the story of Kama, the god of love, being burned down by Shiva's rage. Where did that happen? It happened here, which is the reason it is also known as Bhasmachal, the hill, the mountain of Bhasma. To the best of my knowledge, this is the only island चारों तरफ ब्रह्मपुत्र नदी है। पुराणों में जिस नदी का नाम है लोहित, इस अंचल का नाम हुआ करता था ब्रह्म क्षेत्र। चारों तरफ नदी है, ये द्वीप है। एंड टू द बेस्ट ऑफ माई नॉलेज, this is the only deepa, the only island where there is a Shiva temple and there is a Shiva linga. Kamarupang mahapithang yayanati narottamah sadivya jnana sampannah parang nirvanang apnuyat। ये श्लोक जो है ये कालिका पुराण से है। Most of the stories about Kamrup Kamakhya are from Kalika Puran or Yogini Tantra. That shloka says, an excellent man is a person who knows that Kamakhya, Kamrup, is a great Peetha. He possesses divine Gyan and therefore he attains supreme nirvana. हम आए थे कामरूप कामाख्या। आशा है सभी को ये कार्यक्रम अच्छा लगा। Shakti worship also takes the form of the worship of Tara, and Tara is associated often with Tantra. पहुँचे हैं तारापीठ। तंत्र के बारे में भी हम थोड़ा बहुत जानेंगे आगे इस कार्यक्रम में, because there is a lot of confusion, a lot of questions are asked about Tantra.